Hi guys, this is Miss Whitehurst, and we are going to read an excerpt from the novel The Underground Railroad, written by Colson Whitehead. So one thing I want you to keep in mind while we're reading is that this is a fictional text based on history. So the events in this story and the characters in this story were made up by the author, similarly to how when we read Out of the Dust. But they're still based on real historical events, and the author did base a lot of the scenes and a lot of the characters on real people from history. So the main character in this text is Cora and Caesar, and they are both on their way to escape slavery and to make their way towards freedom. And you're going to notice several people in the Underground Railroad that are helping them as they are making their journey towards freedom. Okay, so let's go ahead and begin reading. Fletcher introduced him as Lumley. He shook their hands weakly. "You the conductor?" Caesar asked. "No good with steam," Lumley said. "More of a station agent." When not concerning himself with railroad matters, he said he led a quiet life on his farm. This was his land. Cora and Caesar needed to arrive under the blanket or else blindfolded, he explained. Best they remain ignorant of their location. "I was expecting 3 passengers today," he said. "You'll be able to stretch out." Before they could figure his words, Fletcher informed them it was time for him to return to his wife. "My part is finished, my friends." He embraced the runaways with desperate affection. Cora couldn't help but shrink away. 2 white men in 2 days had their hands around her. Was this a condition of her freedom? Caesar silently watched the shopkeeper and his cart depart. Fletcher addressed his horses, and then his voice trailed away. Concern troubled the features of Cora's companion. Fletcher had undertaken a great risk for them, even when the situation grew more complicated than he had bargained. The only currency to satisfy this debt was their survival, and to help others when circumstances permitted. By her accounting, at least, Caesar owed the man much more for taking him into his shop all those months before. That is what she saw in his face. Not concern, but responsibility. Lumley shut the barn door, the chains jingling with the vibration. Lumley was not as sentimental. He lit a lantern and gave it to Caesar, while he kicked some hay and pulled up a trapdoor in the floor. At their trepidation, he said, "I'll go first if you wish." The stairwell was lined with stones, and a sour smell emanated from below. It did not open into a cellar, but continued down. Cora appreciated the labor that had gone into its construction. The steps were steep, but the stones aligned in even planes and provided an easy descent. Then they reached the tunnel, and appreciation became too mealy a word to contain what lay before her. The stairs led onto a small platform. The black mouths of the gigantic tunnel opened at either end. It must have been 20 feet tall, walls lined with dark and light-colored stones in alternating pattern. The sheer industry that had made such a project possible. Cora and Caesar noticed the rails. 2 steel rails ran the visible length of the tunnel, pinned into the dirt by wooden cross ties. The steel ran south and north, presumably, springing from some inconceivable source and shooting toward a miraculous terminus. Someone had been thoughtful enough to arrange a small bench on the platform. Cora felt dizzy and sat down. Caesar could hardly speak. "How far does the tunnel extend?" Lumley shrugged. "Far enough for you." "It must have taken years." "More than you know. Solving the problem of ventilation, that took a bit of time." "Who built it?" "Who builds anything in this country?" Cora saw that Lumley relished their astonishment. This was not his first performance. Caesar said, "But how?" "With their hands, how else? We need to discuss your departure." Lumley pulled a yellow paper from his pocket and squinted. "You have 2 choices. We have a train leaving in 1 hour and another in 6. Not the most convenient schedule. Would that our passengers could time their travel more appropriately. But we operate under certain constraints. The next one, Cora said, standing. There was no question. The trick of it is, they're not going to the same place, Lumley said. One is going one way, and the other, to where? Cora asked. Away from here. That's all I can tell you. You understand the difficulties in communicating all the changes in the routes. Locals expresses what stations close down, where they're extending the heading. The problem is that one destination may be more to your liking than another. Stations are discovered, lines discontinued. You won't know what waits above until you pull in. The runaways didn't understand. From the station agent's words, one route might be more direct, but more dangerous. Was he saying one route was longer? Lumley would not elaborate. He had told them all he knew, he maintained. In the end, the slaves' choice lay before them. As ever, any place but where they had escaped. After consulting with his partner, Caesar said, We'll take the next one. It's up to you, Lumley said. He motioned toward the bench. They waited. At Caesar's request, the station agent told of how he came to work for the Underground Railroad. Cora couldn't pay attention. The tunnel pulled at her. How many hands had it required to make this place? And the tunnels beyond, wherever and how far they led? She thought of the picking, how it raced down the furrows at harvest, the African bodies working as one, as fast as their strength permitted. The vast fields burst with hundreds of thousands of white bowls, strung like stars in the sky on the clearest of clear nights. When the slaves finished, they had stripped the fields of their color. It was a magnificent operation, from seed to bale, but not one of them could be prideful of their labor. It had been stolen from them, bled from them. The tunnel, the tracks, the desperate souls who found salvation in the coordination of its stations and timetables. This was a marvel to be proud of. She wondered if those who had built this thing had received their proper reward. Every state is different, Lumley was saying. Each one a state of possibility, with its own customs and way of doing things. Moving through them, you'll see the breadth of the country before you reach your final stop. At that, the bench rumbled. They hushed, and the rumbling became a sound. Lumley led them to the edge of the platform. The thing arrived in its hulking strangeness. Caesar had seen trains in Virginia. Cora had only heard tell of the machines. It wasn't what she envisioned. The locomotive was black, an ungainly contraption, led by the triangular snout of the cow-catcher, though there would be few animals where this engine was headed. The bulb of the smokestack was next, a soot-covered stalk. The main body consisted of a large black box topped by the engineer's cabin. Below that, pistons and large cylinders engaged in a relentless dance with the 10 wheels, 2 sets of small ones in front and 3 behind. The locomotive pulled one single car, a dilapidated boxcar missing numerous planks in its walls. The colored engineer waved back at them from his cabin, grinning toothlessly. All aboard, he said. To curtail Caesar's annoying interrogations, Lumley quickly unhooked the boxcar door and slid it wide. Shall we proceed? Cora and Caesar climbed into the car, and Lumley abruptly shut them in. He peered between the gaps in the wood. If you want to see what this nation is all about, I always say you have to ride the rails. Look outside as you speed through, and you'll find the true face of America. He slapped the wall of the boxcar as a signal. The train lurched forward. The runaways lost their balance and stumbled to the nest of hay bales that was to serve as seating. The boxcar creaked and shuddered. It was no new model, and on numerous occasions during their trip, Cora feared it was on the verge of collapse. The car was empty apart from hay bales, dead mice, and bent nails. She later discovered a charred patch where someone had started a fire. Caesar was numb from the series of curious events, and he curled up on the floor. Following Lumley's final instructions, Cora looked through the slats. There was only darkness, mile after mile. When they next stepped into the sunlight, they were in South Carolina. She looked up at the skyscraper and reeled, wondering how far she had traveled. $30 reward will be given to any person who will deliver to me or confine in any jail in the state so that I can get her again. A likely yellow Negro girl, 18 years of age, who ran away 9 months past. She is an artfully lively girl, and will, no doubt, attempt to pass as a free person. Has a noticeable scar on her elbow, occasioned by a burn. I have been informed she is lurking in and about Edenton. Benjamin P. Wells, January 5th, 1812.